Hello, I'm Mrs. Wilcox, the librarian at Parsley Elementary School. Today's theme is a favorite yummy treat, spaghetti and meatballs. I'm outside on a very windy day today, which is perfect because I'm going to be reading you a book about a town with some very unusual weather. Get your forks ready.
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, written by Judy Barrett with illustrations by Ron Barrett. This book is read with permission from the publisher, Simon & Schuster. We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was squeezing oranges for juice, Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we could each eat, and Grandpa was doing the flipping. Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed toward the kitchen ceiling, and landed right on Henry. After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall-tale bedtime story that he'd ever told. Across an ocean, over lots of huge bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay the tiny town of Chew and Swallow. In most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses with trees and gardens around them, a schoolhouse, about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. But there were no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything that everyone ate came from the sky. Whatever the weather served, that was what they ate. But it never rained rain, and it never snowed snow, and it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas, and sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear a prediction for the next day's food. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home and put them in their refrigerators in case they got hungry between meals. The menu varied. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was already coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny-side-up eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast. Butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast, and most of the time it rained milk afterwards. For lunch one day, frankfurters, already in their rolls, blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles an hour. There were mustard clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times, with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas and baked potatoes were followed by gradual clearing, with a wonderful jello setting in the west. The sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather unusual job for a sanitation department. It had to remove the food that fell on the houses and sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned things up after every meal and fed all the dogs and cats. Then they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans for the fish and turtles and whales to eat. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so that the soil would be richer for the people's flower gardens. Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worse. One day there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day long. The next day there was only broccoli, all overcooked. And the next day there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Another day there was a pea soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that got stuck in the fog. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. One Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long and into the night. There were soft rolls and hard rolls, some with seeds and some without. There was white bread and rye and whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they had ever seen bread and rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone had to stay indoors. Roofs were damaged, and the sanitation department was beside itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could in their backyards. The birds picked at it a bit, but it just stayed there and got staler and staler. There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because of the weight, so they had to close the school. Lunch one day brought 15-inch drifts of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with a stomach ache. There was an awful salt and pepper wind, accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There were seeds and pulp everywhere. The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up, and there was no more school for the children. So a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread sandwich style with peanut butter, took the absolute necessities with them, and set sail on their rafts for a new land. After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town, which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in the new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at a supermarket. They found it odd that the food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again. And nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what had happened to it. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I remember his goodnight kiss. The next morning, we woke up to see snow falling outside our window. We ran downstairs for breakfast and ate it a little faster than usual so we could go sledding with Grandpa. It's funny, but even as we were sliding down the hill, we thought we saw a giant pat of butter at the top, and we could almost smell mashed potatoes. The end.
Hello, boys and girls. I'm Mrs. Avery, the music teacher at Parsley Elementary School, and I have a question for you. Do you like spaghetti and meatballs? I love spaghetti and meatballs, and I have a song for you today about a very yummy meatball. So let's get started. Our song today is On Top of Spaghetti by Tom Glazer. I am going to sing first, and I want you to repeat after me. On top of spaghetti, all covered with cheese. I lost my poor meatball when somebody sneezed. Achoo! And don't forget, we always want to sneeze into our elbow. We do not want to spread any germs, and we definitely don't want our meatballs rolling off of our plates. Let's continue. It rolled off the table and onto the floor. And then my poor meatball rolled out of the door. It rolled in the garden and under a bush. And then my poor meatball was nothing but mush. The mush was as tasty could be. And early next summer, it grew into a tree. The tree was all covered with beautiful moss. It grew great big meatballs and tomato sauce. So if you eat spaghetti all covered with cheese, hold on to your meatball and don't ever sneeze. Achoo! Great job singing with me, and great job sneezing into your elbow. Now, let's put it all together. On top of spaghetti, all covered with cheese, I lost my poor meatball when somebody sneezed. Achoo! It rolled off the table and onto the floor, and then my poor meatball rolled out of the door. It rolled in the garden and under a bush, and then my poor meatball was nothing but mush. The mush was as tasty could be. And early next summer, it grew into a tree. The tree was all covered with beautiful moss. It grew great big meatballs and tomato sauce. So if you eat spaghetti all covered with cheese, hold on to your meatballs and don't ever sneeze. Achoo! We are going to perform this song one more time within a story. So pay attention closely, and when it's your turn to sing, sit up tall and sing loud and proud with your beautiful singing voice. On Top of Spaghetti, written and illustrated by Paul Brett Johnson, with lyrics by Tom Glazer. This book is read with permission by Scholastic. Howdy, folks. Welcome to Yodeler Jones Spaghetti Emporium and Music Cow. You're just in time to hear about the big sneeze. It all started when they put in that fried fritter fricassee parlor next door. I couldn't haul in a customer with a line and a pole. Yodeler, I said to myself, it's time to upgrade the menu. So I set out to invent the most delicious meatball this side of Sicily. And I likely did, but the blasted thing didn't stick around long enough for a taste test. On top of spaghetti, all covered with cheese, I lost my poor meatball when somebody... And then my poor meatball rolled out of the door. For all I knew, my entire future depended on that runaway meatball. I had to have a bite. I was hot on the trail when it flew to the Piggly Wiggly and hit dear Miss Jenkins smack dab in the squash. Pardon my meatball, I said. Then I told my tale. On top of spaghetti, all covered with cheese, I lost my poor meatball when somebody sneezed. That wasn't the end of it, though, not by a monkey's tail. My meatball went a whooshin' and a whizzin', and this time it landed in front of the sheriff's office. Pardon my meatball, I said. On top of spaghetti, all covered with cheese, I lost my poor meatball when somebody sneezed. Next thing I knew, my meatballs zinged all the way to the ballpark. By the time I caught up, some tadwhacker was just about to chomp down. Pardon my meatball, I said. On top of spaghetti, all covered with cheese, I lost my poor meatball when somebody squeezed. That meatball shot to the outfield, boomeranged, whizzed by shortstop, flew over the pitcher's mound, and headed directly for home plate. Bad Bubba Jr. was up at bat. Talk about your home run! My meatball zoomed through the wild blue yonder. And where do you reckon it landed? It rolled in the garden and under a bush. And then my poor meatball was nothing but mush. Yodeler, I said, you might as well put up a for sale sign. Then lo and behold, a miracle occurred. The mush was as tasty could be. And by the next day, it grew into a tree. The tree was all covered with beautiful moss. It grew great big meatballs and tomato sauce. Know what? Those were the most delicious meatballs this side of Sicily. Nowadays, plenty of folks stop in for a bellyful. I always tell them, though, if you eat spaghetti all covered with cheese, hold on to your meatball and don't ever sneeze. Thank you for singing with me today.
Hello, my name is Mrs. Slode. I am the art teacher at Parsley Elementary, and I'm so happy to be with you today. Now, the theme this day is spaghetti and meatballs. You heard a great book, you learned a great song, and so we're going to continue with the theme. Now you see some yummy spaghetti and meatballs. See all the noodles. Okay, is this art? Or is it just a plate of spaghetti? I don't know. Well, if your answer is yes, indeed, it is art, you are right. That painting was made by Jackson Pollock. So he was a famous American painter in the 1950s, 60s, and he painted something called abstract expressionism. Now, he didn't like his canvas to be up in the air on an easel. Oh no, he was more comfortable with his canvas to be on the ground. Instead of acrylic paint or oil paint, he found cans of house paint. That was where he loved it most. He used sticks, he used old paintbrushes, he used just about anything he could get his hands into a bucket and to get in there and what they call splatter painting. So to me, it looks a little bit like our spaghetti. Maybe not the meatballs, but our spaghetti. So this is a Jackson Pollock painting. Now, here is one that I had done on the computer and in Jamboard. Here is his example. Oh, wait a second. Here is spaghetti with meatballs. Looks a little similar, doesn't it? Well, we're going to try one out on our own. Now, if you don't want to do this on the computer, that's fine. There's jacksonpollock.org for older computers. The newer computers don't seem to run it. Or you can simply do this with marker or crayon on a piece of paper. But let's go ahead and try out what we can do here. So this is our canvas, kind of our black canvas. And let's start with yellow. Oh wow. Now that is some fun stuff. I think we'll change colors. Oh, there's that red. Oh, wait a second. It looks like spaghetti with red sauce on top. And maybe even we can do some meatballs. Maybe. All right. So, look how easy that was. Have fun with this. And here are some examples that you can do in paint too. Have a great time with your Jackson Pollocks.
Hey everybody, my name is Mr. Walters. I'm the PE teacher at Parsley Elementary School, and I'm here with your physical education lesson for today. So in your other classes, you've been doing spaghetti and meatballs is what you've learned about. So we're going to have us a little spaghetti and meatball obstacle course. So what I have here is I have a noodle that I'm going to use as my spaghetti noodle. If you don't have a spaghetti or noodle at your house, some things that you might find around your house. If you have a plastic bat of some sort, you can use that. Or if you have a broom or a mop or any thing like this at home, something that's long that can stick out from your hand so that you can kind of sweep the ball with or move the ball. As for our meatball, we are going to use, today I'm going to use this little ball here. So I'll put this here. Some other things that you can use, I have a tennis ball, a basketball, a volleyball, or if you don't have any of those, you can find a sock and roll up a sock to make a little ball, and you can use that. So I've set up a little obstacle course here in my driveway. So I have my little start spot here, and as we travel through our obstacle course, we're going to focus on different pathways and moving our meatball using our noodle through those different pathways. So my first pathway that we have, we are going to go, I have these little dots marked with some sidewalk chalk, and you're going to weave in and out of the dots. Then you're going to come down to the bucket. You're going to go all the way around the bucket. Then you're going to come over to the second part of our obstacle course. I have a straight line. You're going to try and use your noodle to maneuver the ball down the straight line. Then we have a little curved pathway that we're going to take our ball. And then on the last part of our obstacle course, I have a zigzag line. So we've done a weave, we've gone around in a circle, we've gone down a straight line, a little curved pathway. Then we're going to zigzag down here. And then here at the finish line, I have a hula hoop. So I'm going to stop my ball inside the hula hoop as my finish part. If you don't have a hula hoop that you can use, I've also got just a rope finish with a line there, and you can just take the ball across the line. So just something to stop, either a line or a hoop or something that you can hit the ball into. All right, so I'm going to run through it one time for you. I'm going to put the ball right here. And now if you have brothers or sisters at home, or if you have somebody who lives in your house with you and they want to be a part of this, get everybody involved. You can set up a timer and see how long it takes each one of you to go through all the obstacles and end up at the finish line. So time yourself, make it a little competitive if you want. All right, so here I go, and I start. I'm gonna weave out using my little noodle here to move the spaghetti ball, and I'm gonna go weave in and out, come down to the bucket, and go around one full time around the bucket, come down, and I'm gonna try and stay right on this straight line. Use my noodle to make the ball go right down that line in a straight pathway. Now I come to the curved pathway, trying to keep control, using both sides of the ball as I go through. Come over to the zigzag and keep it moving. And then I'm going to finish at the hula hoop. All right, so there it is, the obstacle course. See what obstacle course you can create using stuff that you find at home. Use whatever you can as a noodle, whatever as a ball. Just set up some obstacle course where you're going in and out, working on the different pathways. So we had our weave pathway, a straight pathway, we did a curved pathway, and then also a zigzag. All right, so try and get all those pathways into your obstacle course. What other cool things can you think of to put into your obstacle course? So I hope you had fun. Tune back in. We'll have some more PE lessons for you in the next couple